everyone. The question for today is, what is null and not null constraint in SQL Server? What is the meaning of null? It means having no value. For example, if you take a table here with SSN number, first name, last name, and driver's license number, and if we enter this particular data and we do not have any value in this particular last name column for the first row. So what does it mean? It means it is null. So let's see what a null constraint does. A null constraint accepts null values. So if you insert this row without the last name in it, it's going to execute. Another row without the first name in it, it's going to execute. Another row without the SSN number as null, it will execute it. Another one without the driver's license number, it will execute it. So the null constraint allows or accepts null values, and by default in a table a null constraint is implemented. So what is not null constraint? What does it do? So if you take an example of the same table, and I'm going to define the not null constraint on my last name column and try to insert this row, it is not going to execute. Why? Because the not null constraint is not going to accept null values. So if I enter this with the last name with some data in it, it's going to execute, because the not null constraint is going to check if the whatever data I entered is null or not null. If it is not null, yes, it is going to put that data in this particular table. So in the same way, you can add a not null constraints to a number of columns or to your table, and it is up to you to define which column that you want as null and not null. So here is a quick recap. The meaning of null means having no value, and null constraint accepts nulls or null values, and not null constraint does not accept null values. And null constraint is used to define the nullability of the column, whether the column can accept null values or not. And the default column definition is null. And here is the syntax for null and not null constraint, which is create table, table name, and your column definition null or not null. So let's look at the null and not null constraint in action. I'll be switching over to my SSMS here and have my script ready for demonstration. And let's quickly create this table called as person with social security number, first name, last name, and the driver's license number. I'm going to use my test DB, and let's get connected to my server here. Okay, I'm connected, and I'm going to use my test DB, or else I can select my database here, test DB, and then create table, DB of person. Okay, so I should have my table here. There. Okay, so now what do we do? I'm going to minimize that, or then scroll down, and I'm going to insert a row which is going to have first name, this is my SSN number, first name, last name, and the driver's license as null. You think it's going to be successful or not? Let's check it out. Execute. One row affected. It is taking the driver's license number is as null because I have not defined it as not null in my create table statement. But if I try to run this row wherein my last name is null, will this work? Execute. It gives me an error right away. Cannot insert the value null into the column last name. Table test db.dbo.person. Column does not allow nulls. Insert fails. So that is how we implement the implement the not null constraint in a table. Now, what happens if I try to update the last name for John Doe? Will this work? It does not. Even if you try to update, it's not going to work. It gives us the same error saying cannot insert the value null into the column last name table. The test db.dba.person column does not allow nulls, so the update fails. So what about this? Select star from dba.person where the driver license number equals null. You think it's going to work? It is. But it did not give us any data, right? So, which means you cannot actually do an equal to for a null column. We will have to use is null. There we go. So we cannot do equals to null, but this is the we have to use the is null whenever we want to get some data which is having a value of null. So that's how it works, and hope you understood what is null and not null constraint in SQL Server. Thank you and have a great day.